As a professional artist, I really insist that you need the latest and greatest tech, but this year's new iPads have incredibly exciting updates for artists, and it's not just for professionals. There are exciting, more affordable options that make digital art more accessible than ever for beginners and hobbyists. So in this video, I'm going to cover the most important factors in choosing the best iPad for your needs, how many layers each iPad gets in Procreate, and I'm going to rank which iPads are worth investing in from best to worst, including some devices that every artist needs to absolutely avoid. The most important decision when choosing an iPad is which Apple Pencil you're going to get, because there's actually several different ones, and it makes the biggest difference between how fun or frustrating it is to actually draw on the iPad. You can think of it like a real paintbrush or colored pencil. If you press harder with a colored pencil, it's going to get darker. And if you press harder with a paintbrush, your line gets thicker or thinner. In the Apple Pencil, this is called pressure sensitivity. Unfortunately, Apple threw artists for a loop when they introduced the cheaper USB-C Apple Pencil because it doesn't have this feature. And regardless of whether you are a total beginner or a professional artist, you are going to want pressure sensitivity. So no artist, no matter what your level, should get the USB-C cheaper Apple Pencil. You are going to be so disappointed with that purchase. So you know when you're using a paintbrush, you can use the same brush in different ways to get different effects. Like if you use it on its flat side, you can paint a really big area really fast. But if you have a really small area that you want to paint, if you put the paintbrush on its tip, you can get a really skinny line. Well, this year, Apple introduced the new Apple Pencil Pro, which can do exactly that. This saves so much time when you're drawing, instead of having to switch out different brushes to do different things. And it also has this really cool effect that when you rotate the pencil, it rotates the brush. So the catch here is that the Apple Pencil Pro is not compatible with just any iPad. They're only compatible with the new iPad Pros, Airs, and Minis. Unfortunately, if you have an older iPad, you can't just buy this new pencil, which is a total bummer. And fair warning, this is actually true of all of the Apple Pencils. You can't just mix and match. You need to buy the pencil that is compatible with the iPad that you're getting. Don't assume that you're going to be able to use the Apple Pencil that you already have with a new iPad. Okay, so now that pencils are out of the way, which iPad should you get? Apple makes 4 different types of iPads. There's the iPad minis, which are very tiny. They're extremely portable. There's the regular iPad, which is just a cheap basic iPad. The Airs, which are a step fancier than the iPads, and some of them are a really great value. And then there's the iPad Pros, which are the most powerful, top-of-the-line, fanciest iPads. But there's models in each of these types of iPads that make for excellent drawing tools. Now, if you're going to be drawing for hours on end, the bigger your screen size, the easier and more enjoyable it's going to be to draw on. So you could say size matters. So this chart shows the differences in sizes between the different iPad models. And what's exciting to note here is that it used to be you had to buy the most expensive iPad, the iPad Pro, to get the biggest size. But this year, Apple introduced a 13-inch iPad Air, which means that you can still get that size, the biggest size screen, significantly cheaper, which is awesome. Have you ever been about to take a photo when a warning pops up on your phone saying that you've run out of storage? Well, that's going to be even more of a pain if this happens to you on your iPad. So when you're buying an iPad, how much storage should you plan to buy? The most simplistic answer is that if you're using it primarily for illustration, I'd go with a minimum of 256 gigabytes. If you want to use it for animation or video, you might want to get more. Or you'll want to have a plan for how to back up your files elsewhere so you don't need to store them on your iPad. Now, I don't personally do a ton of animation, but I've probably got around 50 or so animation files in Procreate Dreams. But that's already about 13 gigabytes worth of storage. All right, so let's talk about how many layers in Procreate you can get with each model. If you're new to digital art, Procreate is the most popular professional drawing app on the iPad. Now, there's a lot of great iPad drawing apps, but Procreate is by far the most popular, regardless of whether you are a hobbyist or professional. And Procreate limits the size of your canvas so that the app runs smoothly and doesn't crash. Different models of iPad have different amounts of power, which means that you'll be able to get more layers in Procreate in some iPads and less in others. So if we use the same size canvas, a 300 dpi 16-inch by 16-inch canvas, with these iPads, you'll get 4 and 7 layers. That's not a lot, so I wouldn't waste your time with these models. Now, when you choose an iPad model, you also have to choose how many gigabytes of storage you're going to buy with it. And when it comes to the Pros, the iPad Pros, whether you get 512 gigabytes of storage or a terabyte or more of storage, that is going to affect how many layers you can get in Procreate. So for example, let's say that you got the 3rd gen 12.9-inch iPad Pro with 512 gigabytes. Well, with that, you'd get 19 layers. But if you got the exact same iPad, only you bought 1 terabyte of storage, then you would get 25 layers. I've color-coded these iPads in green and blue on this chart so you can see which ones you need to pay attention to how much storage you're getting. Now, 25 layers is not bad, but you can almost double the amount of layers that you get with these models. And if you're really looking to splash out, then these models get a shocking 77 layers. So a reasonable question then is, how many layers do you actually need? Adding an extra terabyte of storage can get kind of pricey. And the truth is, 41 layers is probably enough for most people, even professional illustrators. And that's exciting because, again, I want to point out that iPad Air and the new Generation 7 Mini, they both get 41 layers. These are excellent iPads. But there's one thing that you can't get with that cheaper iPad Air model. Many people find that drawing on a glass screen just doesn't feel as enjoyable as drawing on physical paper or canvas. Now, you can buy a textured screen protector, such as the brand Paperlike, to get a more natural feeling. But this year, Apple introduced a built-in nano-texture to the newest iPad Pros. And not only does it feel nicer to draw on, but it's also designed to reduce the glare and reflection of lights. The catch? It's only available on the iPad Pro models, and you have to purchase 1 terabyte or more to even have the option of adding it. So if you weren't already planning to get that much storage, you'll likely have to spend at least $500 more to upgrade. So is it worth it? Well, there's 2 reasons you may or may not want to consider it. See, I don't just use my iPad for drawing. I also film myself drawing on it so that I can share my art on social media. And I also film online classes where I teach students how to draw in Procreate, develop their illustration style, and build a creative career as an artist. And this set is actually my office/guest bedroom, so I can't just leave these lights up all the time. That means when I'm filming my iPad, I'm always fussing with the lights to make sure they're not like creating a bright light on the iPad screen and making it hard to see when I'm demoing. The nano texture on glass actually minimizes this glare so much that I can just pop the lights up and not have to waste any time moving them around and making sure that they're not glaring on the iPad. So if you spend a lot of time filming your iPad for reels or social media content, or you're just a content creator, this might be helpful for you as well. What most people don't know is that the techniques I share in my courses go far beyond my YouTube videos. My most powerful drawing secrets, the advanced Procreate techniques, custom brushes, color palettes, and professional shortcuts that have transformed my own art are exclusively available to my students. I regularly get messages from students thrilled at how quickly their art has improved once they learned these methods, instead of spending months struggling with YouTube tutorials. You might want to consider the nano-textured glass if, like me, you love drawing outside. If you've ever tried to work poolside on a laptop, you know the pain of the glare of the sun. So the new iPad Pros, they have these extra fancy screens which allow them to get brighter than any iPad yet. So I was super excited to spend some time sunbathing and drawing. Unfortunately, what I found was that the iPad that I got, well, it overheated really easily in the sun on a day that was in the low 80s. Now, this could just be the model that I got, but I suspect because these new iPad Pros are built to be so thin, they don't have the ability to cool themselves off as easily as other models. Now, to be fair, they're probably not meant to be used in direct sun for extended periods of time. And I was able to use my iPad Pro in the shade and draw for hours and had no issues. I will say that the nano texture actually really does make a difference in the glare of like the sun or different reflections off of the glass. So it really did help me draw outside. But alas, my dream of drawing on the beach in the sun will not be realized this year with these iPads. All right, so let's rank the iPads from best to worst, and I'm going to keep it short. Avoid anything in the F tier. E and D tier iPads are okay, but if you can afford to get something newer, I absolutely would. Now, B and C tier iPads, these are actually incredible iPads, and there's only one reason that I don't recommend them. The C tiers get a 41 layers in Procreate, and the B tiers get this insane 77 layers. The only reason I don't recommend these iPads is because they don't support the Apple Pencil Pro. Now, once we hit the A and S tier, things get really nuanced. So I've made a flowchart to help you decide what's best for you.
The first choice to make is whether you care about having the largest screen size or you prefer something more compact. The next is whether budget matters. From this point on, the only difference between which iPad you'll choose is how much brighter the screen gets. Both of these iPads get the same amount of layers in Procreate, but the 7th generation iPad Pro, with less than a terabyte of storage, gets a slightly brighter screen than the 13-inch Air. However, that comes at a $500 price difference between the two.
I don't know if a little bit more brightness is worth $500. The iPad Air is an exceptional iPad. It is absolutely adequate for both professionals and hobbyists, and I highly recommend it.
If you want the smaller screen size, you'll be choosing between the 11-inch iPad Pro versus the 11-inch Air, or you can even do that 7th generation mini iPad. They'll all get the same amount of layers in Procreate. Finally, if budget is no barrier or you want to get that nano-textured screen, or getting the most possible layers in Procreate is really important to you, then you should go for the iPad Pro with 1 terabyte or more of storage.
Now, regardless of which iPad you end up getting, there's a couple really important mistakes that you need to avoid making with Procreate, like permanently lose all of your artwork kind of mistakes. So check out this video next to make sure that you avoid the worst mistakes that Procreate artists make.